Hey everybody, it's Mo Bunnell, your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue. I'm author of The Snowball System, and I and my teams have trained over 15,000 experts all over the world on sound, efficient, authentic business development techniques. I'm joined today by Grant Baldwin. Grant is the founder and CEO of the Speaker Lab, and we're going to talk about how to use speaking to deepen relationships. Now, this is interesting because we're going to talk about deepening relationships for people that you want to meet but haven't met with, and deepening relationships for those you already know. So for instance, if you're an account manager, an account exec, a client executive, we're going to talk to Grant specifically about how you can deepen relationships, even if you don't need to meet a lot of new people, unlike the other folks in the first bucket that need to meet all kinds of new people almost all the time. So no matter where you're at, if you've got 1 foot in delivery and you've got 1 foot in retention and growth, you can use speaking to win more and deepen relationships. So before you go there, head over to growbigplaybook.com. It's growbigplaybook.com. That's going to give you an instant download and a weekly digest of everything you need to grow your book of business, grow your relationships, and grow your career. So growbigplaybook.com is where you get it. That's where we unveil and we tell people about our newest and latest, no charge, complimentary courses, research, advice, tips, techniques, everything you need to be successful when it comes to business development. So with that said, head over to growbigplaybook.com. Let's get into it with Grant Baldwin. Grant Baldwin, in the first episode that we taped together, so that's 2 episodes ago, I threw it down to the whole community and I said, I wanted to talk to you because you're doing cool stuff and you're funny. And I've laughed, I think I've counted 16 times so far in 2 episodes. So everybody, if you haven't...
You're putting too much pressure on me.
I want to see, so that's an average of 8 per episode. Grant, I want to see 9 or more in this episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But seriously, everybody, if you haven't caught those last 2 episodes, really good stuff from Grant. Go back and dig into those. In this episode, I'm going to ask Grant a real simple question, but I think the answer and the nuance here is super interesting. I don't know where you're going to go with this. I can't wait to hear. Grant, how can our audience, people with 1 foot in the delivery of deep expertise and 1 foot in retention and growth activities, how can they use speaking to deepen relationships?
Yeah, we've touched on this a little bit on previous episodes. So again, if you haven't already, make sure you go back and listen to those. But one of the great things about speaking is that oftentimes it's an in-person human experience. And at the end of the day, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so whenever you're speaking to an audience and you're in a room, there's a different rapport. There's a different connection. You know, Mo, you and I, we've actually never had a chance to meet in person. We've had a lot of opportunities to chat, via Voxer or Zoom or something like this. But we haven't had a chance to meet in person. And I know that when you meet people in person, it completely changes the dynamic of the relationship. So there are people that I know, relationships that I built with people that, maybe we've exchanged some emails over the course of, a couple of years or whatever, or we've hopped on Zoom a time or 2. But when you meet in person at a conference or an event, or they're passing through town or whatever it may be, that it completely changes things. And that's the exact same thing that is true with speaking, is that when you're with a group of people and you're having like one-on-one conversations, or you have this shared experience of being a speaker and sharing some type of idea and concept, that it changes the dynamic of the relationship. So I think that that's one of the biggest benefits of speaking, is you're able to, again, build some of that rapport, that relationship with people who may then want to do further business with you. I have a sense of who this person is. I have a sense of kind of how they communicate. I have a sense of what they're like. I have a sense of, do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Would they do well with our audience or with our team or whatever it may be? And you build that rapport and that camaraderie that oftentimes, again, leads to other business. So yeah, I think speaking is a phenomenal way to connect with people and to build and deepen those relationships.
You just brought something that's popped in my head dozens of times. I don't think I've ever said it out loud, and it really makes sense. And people that have spoken can probably relate to this. When you go to a conference and you're not a speaker, you're either buying stuff or you're selling stuff. And everybody's quickly figuring out which side of the camp you're in, because it's like 50-50 at most conferences, right? There's a whole bunch of people trying to meet a whole bunch of people and a bunch of other people just trying to get content from the conference. But when you go to a conference and you're on the speakers list, you've got that special lanyard, you're on at 8:00 on Wednesday morning or whatever, your relationship with everybody there is different from the beginning because you're usually identified in some way through a visible lanyard difference or
Yep.
a tag at the bottom of your name tag or whatever, a ribbon. But after you speak, everything completely changes. Everybody wants to know you. You're a rock star. You're a killer.
Yep.
You're not one of these random people in the crowd.
Yep.
So talk about that and how that whether it's virtual or in person, how does that speaker sort of name, that almost like a title, how does that help deepen relationships in every way you can think of?
Yeah, I'm laughing because it's so true. You know, there's numerous conferences and events that I've been to, and before you speak, you're kind of walking around and mingling or whatever you may be doing, and you meet someone and they ask what you do, and like, oh, I'm speaking at the event, and oftentimes it's kind of like, well, that's cute, attaboy, you know, and they want to like tussle your hair or something. But then after you speak, and then you see people who are in your session or who saw you speak, like it changes everything. Like it just totally changes everything. People that are catching you in the hallways, people that are catching you in the elevator, like, wait, you were the speaker. Like, that was really good. That was really helpful. Like all of a sudden, your recognition, your perceived value, your credibility just skyrockets. And so this is true for put yourself in the shoes of the audience. Anytime that any of us have been to a conference or an event, and we sit in on a session, and whoever's up on stage, we prescribe a certain level of authority, of credibility, of respect to that person. And so just the mere fact that you are a speaker at a certain conference or an event, all of a sudden people just feel like this person has their act together, right? I'm assuming that the event planner, whoever's putting on this whole event, whether again, it's a small event or a large event, I'm assuming that they vetted all these people. And so if they've gone through the process to vet this person and they trust them enough to speak, this must be someone that I should be paying attention to. This must be someone that I should be learning from or listening to, or that maybe we should consider hiring for, to do some type of service work or consulting or coaching or whatever it may be, for our own company. So whether or not they even see you speak, like you said, just the fact that you have, the speaker lanyard or you have some type of speaker badge. The other thing that's true is that you're also able to rub shoulders with and connect with other speakers. So there's going to be events that you may go to where there's going to be like some amazing top-notch speakers. There may be some that you're just like, that person would not give me the time of day, but because we're in the green room together, or because we're backstage together, or because I have the speaker badge as well. Like, again, there's a certain level of credibility that's instantly gained just by being a speaker at the event. So yeah, even if you're saying, hey, I don't have any desire to be some bigwig speaker or anything like that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you just did some breakouts from time to time and at a couple of key events, it really, really helps from a networking perspective because, again, speakers have a certain level of cachet, of credibility, of authority when you're speaking at an event.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking back to all kinds of speaking events, and I think there's only two things in life I can think of that elevate your presence as like speaking. Well, one, speaking. The other one is when you pull a big group together to solve a problem. When you're the one that brings a bunch of people for networking or to share an idea or whatever, people put you up on a pedestal because you know everyone. I'm doing air quotes for the audio folks that can't see it. You're the person who knows everything and they want to know you. They want to know you more because you're somebody that's connectable. That's really powerful. And then speaking is the other one. The other thing, and I'd love you to comment on this, is I've gone and give speeches before, and I thought, man, that was a bust. Everybody loved the session; they absolutely loved it, but it doesn't. Pretty soon, within 2 or 3 weeks, like of a half life, like if there's gonna turn into any commercial business or not.
Yep.
And there's been lots of speaking I've done that I didn't think was fun and made a big impact and a transformative experience on the audience, but for whatever reason, didn't turn into commercial business, except the next year, somebody sees you again, or somebody calls up and was a potential partner organization that was in the crowd and said, I saw you speak. I've got this other conference I put together with XYZ in it, which are your clients probably. I'd love you to speak at that. So sometimes the benefits aren't commercial, but they're rather relationship that are either with future clients or with future partners, where one speech sort of leads to the next, leads to the next. So talk about the relationship building that occurs when you're the speaker. We sort of covered it, but I want you to go deeper in it.
Yeah, let me give you a couple of examples. When I first got started as a speaker, there's a friend of mine who got invited to do an event that was that didn't make sense for him financially. It was just literally they were paying like I think $500. It was something that was a couple hours from where I lived, and I was like, I'll do it. I'm in. I'm looking for any at bat at this point. And so I go speak at this small little conference, this small little event, and you're just giving your all, and you're like nobody here in the audience. This is not going to lead to anything. And so I finished speaking. And a lady that was there comes up and introduces herself. And this is for like this small little state conference. And she said, I happen to be in town. My husband is the national director for this same organization. And I thought you were really, really good. I'm going to go tell him about you. And literally within like a week or so, I was invited to keynote their national conferences. They did 3 fall national conferences, and I got to keynote all 3 of them. I was a nobody, but because the right person was in the audience. And I think that speaks to you have no idea who is in the audience. Let me give you another example, a recent example. So this was probably 7 years ago or so. I spoke at the biggest event I've ever spoke at. I did a keynote for a group of about 13,000 people. It goes great. Phenomenal experience in this arena. And so literally, if we go back about a year or so ago, I got an email from someone who said the director at the time of that organization, they had retired a couple of years ago. They said, I was in the audience. I was an attendee 7 years ago or whatever it was. And I remember your speech, and I remember what you talked about. I remember how you made the audience feel. And I remember the connection that you had with the audience. This person is in charge of the event now. And I would love to have you come back. Now, again, that's really, really difficult to reverse engineer or quantify going, okay, if I show up and I do a great job now, then in 2027, it should lead to something. You don't know that. But part of being a speaker is you're planting a lot of different seeds with audience members. I'll give you one other example. A lot of speaking I did early on in my career was in the education space. I did a lot with high schools, did a lot with colleges. And so I remember speaking at this conference or this event. It was a school assembly. It was a high school assembly. And afterwards, I remember like a day or two later, I got an email from this big wig client, and they said, my granddaughter was in the audience of the school that you spoke at. And as soon as you finished speaking, she texted me, and we want to have you come speak at our thing. Now, again, you didn't know that person was there. You didn't know that she's connected to this person. You didn't know that hey, I should text my grandpa about this, right? Like none of those things. But again, like planting seeds with the audience, you have no clue what it'll lead to. You have no clue what people are looking for. The other thing I would remind people of is to remember as a speaker is that this is a long-term business, right? And it's important to plant those seeds. So there are times where I remember early on in my career, I would try to get booked to speak at a conference or an event, and they would pick a different speaker. They went with Mo instead of, come on now, like Mo gets to speak at everything. Why don't you pick me? And I'd be annoyed and I would be frustrated. And then I remembered, you know what, that event, they're going to have it again next year. And then they're going to have it the year after that. And they're probably not going to keep having Mo. So eventually they're going to run out of options and be stuck with me. And so there were a couple of clients I can think of. I followed up year after year after year after year. And eventually they're like, you've been following up for 4 years. We're going to give you a shot, And that happened so many times by just staying top of mind. Because I knew, again, they're going to have the event. They're going to have the event. They're always going to be looking for speakers. If I stay top of mind, eventually they may be like, you know what, this guy isn't going anywhere. Not from an annoying, not from being a pest, but realizing I'm not some flash in the pan. I'm not some fly by night. Like I'm in this, I'm speaking at other events that are similar to yours. I can help your audience. And again, the long-term just showing up led to more and more business in the future. So yeah, you're exactly right. Whenever you speak, you have no idea who is in the audience and how those seeds that you plant can lead to other things, both in the short term, but as well as in the long term.
Grant, I was going to close this episode out so we get to our next one, but there's something really good there. I want to grab actually, no, I'm going to save this for our next episode. I'm not going to tell people what it is. Yep.
Okay.
Create some curiosity, but I got a zinger of a question for Grant, and we're not going to cover it till the next episode. So folks, that's dropping tomorrow. If you're watching this on the day this drops, after that, just watch the next one. Grant, where should people go to hear more about the cool stuff you're doing at the Speaker Lab?
Yeah, everything we do is over at thespeakerlab.com, thespeakerlab.com. We got a podcast by the same name, the Speaker Lab Podcast. And then also we've got a book called The Successful Speaker, 5 Steps for Booking Gigs, Getting Paid, and Building Your Platform. So plenty of resources there. Check them out and fire away with any questions you have and anything I can do to help serve and support you.
I love it. Thank you, Grant.